Today's first reading probably got under some people's skins. As St. Paul says, be subordinate to one another out of reverence to Christ. Wives should be subordinate to their husbands to the Lord. And therefore, that's why women should always be underneath the heel of the man, right? No, that's not what St. Paul is saying. So let's take this broader context and see what's going on. First of all, I just want to say this is a key word that St. John Paul II takes for his theology of the body. The first part of the theology of the body, he looks at the three words of Christ that appeal first to the beginning, second to the heart, and then third to the resurrection when talking about what's the purpose of our bodies and how it reflects back the glory of God. In the second part of his talks, he's talking about the sacrament, and the sacrament being marriage, and he says this is the key passage which talks about what marriage is and how our bodies then are used. And throughout this passage, there are two different meanings of the body. One is our bodies here and now, but the second is pointing to the mystery of Christ's body, the church, and his relationship with that. And so we've got these two different pieces that we're going to be looking at very briefly, very incredibly briefly today. And, how much can I do in 5 minutes? Not a whole lot, but so maybe I'll go 10. Who knows? But first of all, we have to remember, when we're looking at all things Christian, what is the paradigm we're using to look at these things? Are we looking at things from the paradigm of power and authority and submission under the foot? Are we looking at it from the paradigm of control and tyranny, which is the way the world looks at things? And if you look at this passage in that perspective, with that paradigm, yes, you are right to get upset with this passage. But that's not the lens with which St. Paul was writing, nor is it the lens with which Christ looks at the world. Christ's lens, the paradigm that we need to be using, is that of gift, that of love, that of service, not of power and control and tyranny, but of love and gift and service. With this perspective, then, the subordination or the submission needs to be looked at as service. I'm serving you, you're serving me. I'm giving myself to you, you're giving yourself to me. And so it says, wives should be subordinate or submissive to their husbands as to the Lord. Well, how are we to be submissive to the Lord? Not because the Lord is a tyrant, but because the Lord is a lover. And so we submit ourselves to our God who loves us so tremendously. And submission, the word means to be put under the mission. What is the mission then of the husband? If the wife is to put herself under the mission of the husband, what is the mission of the husband? Husbands, love your wives, even as Christ loved the church and handed himself over for her to sanctify her, cleansing her by the bath of water and the word. So wives are called to put themselves under the mission of the husband, which is to love them. That they're to help the husband love them, help the husband to die to themselves to love them. And if the woman is submitting to the husband and the husband is dying to himself for the woman, they're both serving each other. They're both building each other up. So it's a matter of gift, not of tyranny, not of control, not of power. Okay, so that's one side of the coin. What does this look like for us? How are we to show respect and love for each other? But then St. Paul says, this is a great mystery, but I speak in reverence to Christ and his church. This is now the spousal analogy. that when we look at the love of a husband and a wife, that is a reflection, an analogy to God's love for us. It's more than a metaphor, St. John Paul II says. It's not just a metaphor saying, okay, it's kind of like the way husbands love wives, Christ loves the church. No, it's an analogy, which means it's giving a lens to pierce the mystery of God's love for us. Helps us to enter into that mystery, to penetrate it, so that as we look at what marriage is in this world and how we are called, at least before the fall, after the fall there's so much brokenness in it, but how we are called to then die to ourselves for the other, to live for the other, to build the other up, to unite one another to each other. So that is Christ's love for us. But when we look at even the best of marriages in this world, it's just a hint, just a shadow of the incredible, intimate, passionate love that God has for us. And so as we meditate on this incredible mystery today of how God wants to draw us deeper into His heart, more closely, more intimately than any husband and wife are intimately united, even in the marital act. This is the great mystery where we have to recognize this is seen in the sacraments. That He washes her with water and the Word, that He gives us the sacrament of baptism, that He gives us the Eucharist, which is the marriage act between Christ and the church. He's calling us where He says, "This is my body given up for you," to enter into us and to draw us into that one flesh union with Christ. This is a great mystery. And it's incredibly hard to understand. It takes some mystic like John Paul II to break this open for us. May we spend time really pondering and praying and allowing God to allow us to penetrate this mystery and to allow this ministry to permeate us. First, how it is that we are called to love each other in the spousal union. And second, how we are to allow God to love us and us to be loved by God.